So Carol, just make all the listeners have a small sense of who you are. I know who you are because I attended your workshop Thursday and had a wonderful time. I also bought your book, Joining the Resistance. It's got a kind of a revolutionary ring to it that I like. So tell me about yourself so that the listeners can also have an idea about who you are and what you stand for.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm so happy to be here in Denmark. This is my first visit to Denmark. I was invited by Dispuk, and so I had the privilege on International Women's Day, which was last week, of having a workshop here where we had, I think it was 30 remarkable women and a very wonderful discussion. So I'm very happy to have this chance to talk with you more and talk with women in Denmark. I would love to listen to women in Denmark and hear what's on your mind, what's in your heart these days. I did really almost by accident, in the sense it was not something I was looking for, but I began to listen to women. That's what was revolutionary. Now that sounds silly because I'm a woman, so you could say, but I think the way I would put it is that in order to listen to myself, I had to listen also to other women. Because what I heard in listening to women talking about choices in their lives, I mean, times when there was a question of which way will I go? Will I go this way or this way? I realized that women were saying something. This is, the women I was listening to, certainly not all women and so forth, but still a range of women from a variety of backgrounds and cultures were saying things that made sense to me, I understood, but which didn't fit with the way we were taught, because I was teaching in the university at this time. I was teaching at Harvard University, how we were supposed to talk about what is correct, what is right, how you should live, and so forth. Because as women, I think we live in some ways closer to relationships with people, and and to emotions, which are just human experiences, to live in relationships, to have feelings as well as thoughts. And yet in the university world, you're told that to be rational, you should put aside your feelings. And if you want to move ahead and get ahead and reach the higher levels of something, that you had to separate yourself from relationships. And I think it always struck me there was something wrong with this way of talking. But for a long time I thought, well, maybe it was just me. So I started listening to other women. It led me to write a book. It was the first thing I wrote that was not for school. And I called it In a Different Voice. Meaning, here's a voice, which is the voice that tells you what you should do, and so forth. And here's a different voice. So that was the beginning of my work. That was the first phase of different from what. And then I realized different from a voice that assumed that the law of the father was, it was assumed to patriarchy. There was some group of men mostly, but their wives too, and so forth, who were the people who knew the truth. And this was a different voice. And I said bringing women's voices into the human conversation would change the voice of the conversation by giving voice to aspects of human experience that otherwise tended not to be spoken about or seen. And basically that there's always an emotional component to everything, and we live in relationships. And then after that work, which I published my book in 1982, the first article of it was 77, I think. Then I started to do work with girls, and I listened to girls, and that's when I heard the resistance. That's where the word resistance comes from. Because girls were seeing a problem and resisting entering into a world where they were told, if you want to be included, if you want to get ahead, if you want to be the kind of girl who other people want to be with, then you shouldn't say what you really feel and think. And the girls were thinking, wait a minute, if I don't say what I'm feeling and thinking, then what are these relationships? I'm not there. I'm not present. I'm absent. But if I say what I'm feeling and thinking, people will say that sounds stupid or it sounds whatever. So then I wrote this book. I did a lot of work with girls. I wrote 5 books with my students about the work of joining women, understanding women by joining women with girls. Where did we come from as women? And then I wrote my most recent book, Joining the Resistance. Let's join this healthy resistance to basically losing touch with parts of our humanity.
Yeah. And thereby losing ourselves, right?
And thereby losing ourselves. And then losing something that's really of a great value in the world. And that's where I write now about patriarchy as the opposite, not of matriarchy, that's just patriarchy turned on its head, but as the opposite of democracy. To say as human beings we are born with a voice and the desire to live in relationship with other people, to engage with others. And so we're born with the requisites for love and for democracy. And to realize that in our lives, our personal lives, our public lives, we have to resist patriarchy. It's a healthy resistance.
Yeah.
And it's not a women versus men, because patriarchy is harmful to men too. But for reasons that I could describe, women are very key to this resistance. So it was wonderful to have a workshop on International Women's Day, because the message was, let's join this healthy resistance.
Exactly.
Make a change.
And basically, instead of accepting the so-called truth, realizing that it's only a voice.
Exactly.
And we have another voice ourselves, we need to build that up, right? We need to strengthen that to make it a louder voice, I guess.
Well, and to give it more resonance, because what my research showed is at a certain point, what seems like just an honest voice, a girl's voice, girls are told that this is stupid, or this is wrong, or this is crazy, I don't know what you're talking about, or, well, it's just that you're this or that. In other words, that's a voice that gets a bad resonance.
So this other voice, I think that's what I'm actually hearing from older women, not only 11, 12, 13, but now women at the age of 30, 40, 50, something is happening inside of them, but they're not all aware of what's going on, because I think maybe they have become so far away from their 11-year-old girl that they can't really identify the what's going on inside them, but they know something is not working. So, do I make sense when I say that?
Totally, yes. Yeah? I'm very interested in that knowing.
Yeah.
In that sense of, I know something is not right here. I know something
But
is
where
not
does
working.
it come from? Am I the nutcase here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, but the big discovery for me is what I heard as a different voice is a human voice.
Yeah.
And how does a human voice come to sound, quote, different? Different from what? Different from a patriarchal voice. So that girl, I mean, that human being is in all of us. So at a certain point, maybe when a woman is 30, usually there's something that happens, and suddenly you think, wait a minute. And the voice that you've maybe held in silence in yourself. I remember there's one girl who said, the voice that stands up for what I believe in has been buried deep inside me. And what's interesting about that sentence to me is the word buried, meaning it's not lost. You know,
it's still there.
There. And I think there are moments in women's lives when that voice starts to come up. And there are pressures to silence it, saying that's not the right way, or what's wrong with you, or all of that. But there's also a sense of, wait a minute, that makes sense. And if you listen to that voice, then you're in a place of, you're in touch with your humanity. I mean, that's basically it. But you're also in a stance of resistance to certain structures of the world. So I think it's very interesting to me, because I think that women, because I think we're initiated later into how we're supposed to talk about things, we're more aware of the difference between how things are and how things are said to be. So I think that voice comes up, and then I think more and more women, maybe now, are beginning to listen to it. And I always think that when you have something that's been inside you but you haven't really paid attention to, and it starts to come up, you say, wait a minute, I know that voice. It's familiar, but it's also surprising. Where is this coming from? Because there were other voices inside of you that kept that voice down, that said, what's wrong with you? That's really stupid. Or are you crazy? That's women a lot. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. You know?
Yeah. And then there's the fear of being a nutcase, the fear of losing my job, the fear of making a change that's so profound that I don't know where I'll end up.
Yeah.
Because then I'll not be part of the paradigm anymore.
Right.
So then who am I and where am I, right?
Exactly. And then, I have these endless quotes from girls. And one girl says, if I were to say what I was feeling and thinking, this is a very attractive girl, a very successful girl. She's 16. She says, if I were to say what I'm feeling and thinking, no one would want to be with me. My voice would be too loud. So when that voice comes back and say, wait a minute, if you want to know what I'm feeling and thinking, the fear comes back. No one will want to be with me if I say that. And then you discover what's wonderful when you discover, which I discovered through my work. As a matter of fact, a lot of people want to be with you, but it's not, but there also are real forces against it.
Totally.
So you really are in the midst of, instead of that conflict being almost like a silent conflict inside of you, it becomes in the world.
Exactly.
And you speak about women leaving corporate structures. That's what, and women say, wait a minute, I want to start my own business, or I want to do things in a different way.
Yeah, because this is not my way.
This is not my way. Or this way, I see this way as a destructive way. I see it having costs that I can't accept. I see it as not good for me. I see it as not good for other people, and I'm not going to participate in it. And then, as you said, it's a voice that comes, what's wrong with you? This is your problem. It's just your mother. It's, whatever.
Yeah. And
that's very hard because, after all, then you start to feel like, am I crazy? But there's a sense of, I think we speak about of being grounded. Feeling like I'm talking about something I feel in my heart, or I feel it in my body. Sometimes women start to it's the body that speaks. You have headaches, or, I remember when I was in a school working, and the teachers were having migraine headaches, and they were having digestive problems, and so we started to meet and talk, and it turned out they felt they couldn't bring their perceptions, their voice, their experience into their teaching. And when they did, the migraines went away and the stomach problems went away. But then there was conflict with the institutions.
Right. Exactly, because they talked from another standpoint, from another angle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then to say that different voice, which was heard as a feminine voice, is really a human voice. Yeah. And it's a voice of resistance. That's very different.
So, in your opinion, the feminine voice, what we define as the feminine, is actually voice. I agree.
And the reason it gets defined as feminine is because it joins reason with emotion, and it joins the mind with the body, and it joins the self with relationships. And in a patriarchal culture, which is a culture that splits everything into masculine or feminine and elevates the masculine, reason is masculine and emotion is feminine.
Exactly.
And the mind is masculine and the body, particularly the vulnerable body, is feminine. And the self is masculine and relationships are feminine. And the assumption is if you're really a man or mature, you don't need relationships, which we know is crazy.
People die from it, actually.
People die from it, yes. And that's a secret that women have kept, because we live close to men whether it's our sons or our fathers or our brothers or our lovers, and we know that they depend on relationships and they have to act as if they don't, as if they don't care. So they have to silence the people who take care of them. So that's women, and it's also people of color and so forth. So that whole patriarchal story depends on a lot of people not speaking. And when these people start to speak, it's suddenly like, wait a minute, that's not a true story. So
my goal is to start a tipping point.
Well, that's terrific.
Right? Or
that's
to
great.
create a tipping point global, right? A lot of small changes everywhere will make a big one.
Like that's how the tipping point happens.
Exactly.
And my question is, are we now at a tipping point? Because the issue is so crucial.
It is.
And, in America now, we have sort of unapologetic patriarchy, Trump. And then we have patriarchy under siege, Me Too. Mm-hmm. Woman stands up and says, this is my experience. And instead of being told, she's just a slut or she's just crazy, people listen to her. And not only that other women, and I think this is so important, instead of other women standing back to watch, what's going to happen to her, other women are coming forward and saying, me too.
Exactly.
This is not just your experience, this is also my experience. So this is women leaving patriarchy. Mm. So I think we are at a tipping point, and I think the consequences are potentially huge.
Yeah, and we need to keep on working now because it's a crucial time.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And you could say, without trying to be melodramatic, what's at stake is the future of this planet, because we're dealing with climate change. And you could say what's the stake is the future of really our species, because we're dealing with, with between nuclear weapons and so forth. So this patriarchal paradigm is very dangerous now. But the sense that we have a different paradigm, that's very encouraging.
It is.
And I think it's key that women speak. So that's where I agree. I think we're really at a tipping point now.
Yeah. Love that word.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, tipping word.
Yeah.
Tipping point is good.
Just go, you can see it.
Yeah.
Enough. It's like, with the Me Too movement, who thought that these very powerful men, one after one after one after one,
they would crumble.
There would be consequences to behavior which they were told for centuries there's no consequence to. And it was because the women who spoke were shamed and silenced. And instead, now these women are being listened to and being joined by other women and also by men.
Yeah. And it's lovely.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I think also in relation to religion and other things, that maybe the tipping point is also the understanding that separation is a word from the linear system, a very linear thinking, whereas integration, being one, everything as a whole.
Interdependence.
Interdependence,
everything
exactly.
is connected.
Everything is connected. If we can get more people to understand that it is not me, but it's we.
Right.
And it's not you and I, we are connected.
Right.
In that way, our whole mindset will actually change.
That's right. And, it's so interesting because, if you say there's a tension between who we are as human beings and these patriarchal structures, then you say, well, this would have been going on forever. So you look back and you realize there have always been voices that said, no man is an island. Or Martin Luther King, just injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
Yeah.
The idea that something that happens over here is not going to affect me. You may not see how it's affecting you, but it does.
Exactly.
And then you sort of see, how as human beings we are so sensitive to what's going on. Remember, we showed that film in the workshop, the still face experiment. So we do pick these things up, and what we have to do not to pick up what's happening. Like if we walk past a person on the street who is homeless, and if I have to feel I can't see this person, then I have to start to shut down parts of my human capacity. So I see less and less and less and less.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed.
Yeah.
So that's also what leadership is about, right? The paradigm of leadership, for me, it's like we have talking about women in leadership. I keep telling and advocating for that we need to change the paradigm of leadership, not the women to fit into the existing paradigm of being a leader, or rather a boss. Because the dilemma is actually the same. You just have to fit in to the existing, man up, take charge, blah, blah, blah.
Lean in.
Lean in, right? And it's not working. It never will work. So for me, it's like, that's where the paradox is, that we are saying, oh, we want more women in leadership. We need them. They're good for business. They're good for blah, blah, blah. It's not happening because the paradigm is not shifting.
Well, and then what you say is, if women, because of how we've been situated in the world and our experiences, if we come into these structures and we see that there are real problems in them, and we're told if you want to get ahead, you can't say anything.
Right.
Then we start to take the toll in our bodies or in our lives. Our relationships start to be in trouble and things like that. So I think the big question, and for me it's been the question since the beginning, but to me it's right in this where things are now, is let's just say women come into places that women haven't been before, like in the leadership roles in companies, or, like we had a woman run for president. Is that just going to be now it's fair because women can do what men have
done?
That's what I think has been called equality feminism. And, you can't argue. Women's rights are human rights are women's rights, that women are humans. That's not even an argument to me. What's interesting to me is if you bring a group who has been outside in, that's potentially a very creative moment.
Mm.
I mean, that's true. Always, we know this.
Mm.
So women coming in have the potential to change, to see things that otherwise become invisible, and to make change. So will women coming in transform? And I think what you're talking about, to me, is when women feel the price of my coming in is I have to become someone who I'm really not. Thank you very much. I'd just as soon not come in.
Yeah.
Then you lose that transformational potential of this moment.
Unless you choose as a woman to be like the men.
Right.
And then you actually only have a number in the statistics saying, yes, we have a woman.
Right.
But it's not going to make the change.
No, then
because it's just going to be a man with boobs.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And the question is, will the woman, and I don't think necessarily. I mean, then in some sense you can see her becoming like men become in that system. Because it's not how men are either. It's how men have to become.
Yeah.
And there are more and more men speaking out about the cost to them of fitting into those systems.
And it's good, and it's time.
It's time.
It's time. Where do you see women today in comparison to, let's say, 20 years ago?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, this made so much. In one sense, I mean, if I go back, let me go back to where my work began, which is, it's like, 40 years ago. When I started, there were I was teaching at Harvard, there were almost no women on the faculty. And it's like there were very few women in professional schools, and there were very few women, this is in America, in the Senate or the House, or in other words, there was... So now you look and you think, wow, women are in all kinds of places. We had women astronauts and, women at this kind of thing. So the question to me is, and I think it's just very alive now, will this make a difference?
Mm.
And it's very hopeful in some ways because I think there are aspects of life that are more visible to women. Like what happens, what's the cost if you don't care about other people?
Yeah, caring.
Yeah.
Keyword.
If we don't care about children, basically we're not caring about the future.
Mm.
And it used to be, we thought, well, that will all be what women will do, and we'll say, oh, they're like angels, you don't even have to pay them.
Still don't?
Yeah, no, but that's just it. And then, then you say, wait a minute, if you don't value what I do, if you don't see the intelligence that goes into taking care of people, for example, and you pay me if I do this other thing, then maybe I'm not going to do it. So then you have a crisis of care. And we've had this. I mean, we certainly have it in the States.
Oh, we certainly have it in Denmark as well, right now.
Yeah.
These days.
You know, and in some ways, women said either, you know, enough is enough. Either see the value of this, make it possible for me to have dignity and to earn a living. I mean, because what happened is, you know, women who spent a lot of their lives and energy caring for other people, and then people said, thank you very much, and basically they had no money, they had no support, they were alone.
And when they grow old, they certainly don't have the money to be taking care of themselves.
Yeah, they have no pension, they have no, whatever. I mean, it's worse in America than here.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we don't have that social. So there was a crisis. And anyway, I think these issues are very alive right now, which is both a little scary and very hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah.
And work for the
Well, I don't think
right
we just
way.
see. Yeah, exactly, because I think we see it's very important that we get involved right now.
So how do women lift their voices? I mean, I see so many women saying, yeah, I want to make a change. How? How do I do it?
Well, in America, it's very interesting right now because so many women are running for political office and winning.
Yeah.
Women who you would never think, I mean, you know, including lesbian women and transgender women. And I mean, all people, in a sense, maybe the election of Trump was a shock. And, you know, it sort of galvanized women to say enough is enough. And I was involved with this group in Israel, Palestine, called Women Wage Peace. And after the Gaza war in 2014, a group of women came together, small group, and said, this cannot go on. I mean, this is so destructive. This conflict must end. And they said, we need a new language. We need a different voice. We need a new approach. And women must be involved. Well, that was 2014. It's the largest grassroots peace movement in Israel. And it has Palestinian women and Israeli women and Jewish women and Arab women and religious women and secular women. You know, women, in a sense, joining basically to help, you could say, which would be to care. To say, wait a minute, I care about this, and the way I'm going to care is I'm going to wage peace. And I think I see that like seeds of it here, and it was in Liberia, you know, the women who ended the civil war brought it, and they won the Nobel Peace Prize, and the women in Northern Ireland. So I think there's a sense of women around the world thinking, wait a minute, we've been sitting around counting on these leaders, and it's we see what's happening.
It's going all bad.
Yeah, and we think, wait a minute, no, I have to get involved. That's, to me, what's happening. Yeah. That's the hope. So that's the moment, I think. And in America, suddenly we have, I can't remember how many times, but the women running for office is... That
would be... We don't have that in Denmark. Our statistics are actually going backwards.
Well, they were going backward in America, too.
Oof. Yeah, so I hope we'll make see the same pattern here.
But, I mean, we had a crisis. You don't have the crisis. We had the crisis of Trump.
As bad. Yeah, right.
And it was suddenly everybody thought patriarchy, that's just like a dead word. And, I can't, so old, so over, so boring. Feminism, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That's over. And then Trump gets elected. And everybody said, wait a minute. And then you had the largest march of ever in this march of women.
And it was 687 places in the world. It was amazing.
Yes.
I went to Copenhagen.
Yeah, it was amazing. And men marching under the banner of women. So what you could say is that's women leaving patriarchy because it's women speaking and women joining with other women, which is what doesn't happen under patriarchy. And then men leaving patriarchy to join, saying, it doesn't threaten my masculinity to march with women.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's hopeful.
Yeah, let's go for that one.
Yeah.
Definitely. So,
but I think what I want to say is it makes trouble, and you're naive if you don't think there's a backlash against you.
Yeah, you need to know that.
Yeah. And I think what's key is you have to not be alone.
Yeah.
You must be with other women.
Exactly.
And so that's really crucial.
And that's actually, I wanted to ask you about that, because I got like, I always say to other women, at least vote for another woman.
Yeah.
Always vote for another woman. And maybe someone who has not been part of the system, political system too long. So she'll, you know, be able to answer the wrong questions.
Right.
Which are right, the right questions. And also be aware of always being fair and good to to the women around you. And building them up and building each other up, right?
Exactly.
Because that's a key point for me, that we need to know to lift each other.
You know, I would say too, I mean, if I'm not good to, you have to be good to yourself. And if you're good to yourself, you can be good to the other women. And if you're being bad to yourself, then usually you act out with you're not so good to the other women. I also think it's not just women as such, because the women who become joined with the patriarchy, I don't think you want to support those women.
Nope.
I mean,
Agreed.
You can think about what has happened to them. I mean, where is their voice? And I learned a lot, because I do research, that if I didn't question the patriarchal voice, I didn't hear the voice under that voice. Do you know? So, I mean, what I'm interested in when I hear a woman who's completely aligned with the patriarchy is there a voice under that voice, and how do I get to that?
Exactly.
But, I mean, it's really particularly to join the women who are joining the resistance. The title of my book is not Join Women, it's Join the Resistance. And it's saying, what I would say is that for reasons that are very clear to me now because of the work I've done, women's voices are key in the resistance. Because in some ways it's easier for us to resist because the pressures on men who resist, the shaming of their masculinity, is really, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So, and as outsiders, if we come in and they say, well, this is how we do things here, you know, we don't leave early to take care of a sick child, and we don't do this because that's just soft, and we're about the bottom line and money and there's a moment where the woman could think, that strikes me as odd. Do you know what I mean? And that's a really important thing.
It is.
But they say, well, this is how we do it. And you think, excuse me, it's not how I do it.
No.
And then you have to say, there's another way.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, there's nothing.
That's exactly the article, the theme of the article I talked about to you, that I was interviewed in the newspaper. There's another way. We don't want that one. So we'll make
make another way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's essential. So, do you want to talk to me just a few minutes before we close this interview? Talk to me a little bit more about the Joining the Resistance book, because you can have it in this book, I guess. You can have it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and it's not very expensive.
Perfect.
And it's also, I've been told, and I wrote it in a very conversational style. It's a personal book, too. I write about my own experience, how I came to do this work, and my own view of the work and where things are now. And the second chapter, which is called Where Have We Come From and Where Are We Going? I write it as a fable about what happened, what happened to the chair in gender studies at Harvard, that it no longer is a chair in gender studies. And do we still need to talk about gender, and why we need to talk about gender? So I think it's an easy to read book. There are people who tell me, they take it on a train and they read the whole thing.
Perfect.
It's not like a academic book, where you have to take. And so, you can get it on Amazon. I think it's $11? I don't know what that is in Danish kroner.
Not much.
Not much.
No.
And
I think it still makes the essence that if I look back in a historical view, patriarchy has existed for about 5,000 years or so. But before that, we actually had a whole other system, humans involved,
That's right. That was which was a democratic system.
Exactly, it was much more balanced between masculine and feminine, or whatever the human system.
Yeah,
it was communal, and we didn't have all these dilemmas. So basically, what you're saying about the human connection,
right?
We had that. I mean, we had that for 35,000 years,
right,
until we had the change about 5,000 years ago. So it is possible to change.
It's the change.
We need that change, men and women.
The of the change is within us.
Exactly.
It's who we are as humans. That was the stunning thing.
Yeah.
Was to realize that what sounds like a different voice and sounds like a feminine voice is in fact a human voice, and it's a resisting voice. And it's a voice that's associated with health.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With people who are...
Love, compassion, connection, everything that's
You know
good.
What's so interesting is if you go back, you can say, people have been saying this for a long time about love is the answer. I mean, even the Pope says it. You know?
Yeah.
Because in a way it's... And Gandhi said it, and blah, blah, and the Dalai Lama says it. And then you think, yes, that's right. It is the answer. Because love uproots hierarchy. Yeah. I mean, it goes underneath. We know it. Underneath all these borders and barriers is people fall in love as people. So then you have to say, what's stopping love? So it changes the question. Not how can we find love. That's within us. That's where we start. So what happened?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's in some ways the women that you're interested in, who walk into corporations and it doesn't feel very loving. And you say, what happened here? That people are not behaving like human beings. They're behaving like what? I mean, they're
robots.
Robots. They're being insensitive to people's feelings. They're being actually, very harsh with themselves and other people. This is
But that's
happened?
a cut-off paradigm you were actually talking about,
That's
right?
right.
In the upbringing, that we cut off the connection between heart and head.
That's exactly right. And, we know now from neuroscience that the person who separates his thought from his feelings, this is not rationality. This is the result of trauma. That's the work of Antonio Damasio and Joseph Ledoux. I mean, that our nervous systems are wired to connect thought. So if we separate our minds from our emotions, we don't think about what we're feeling, and then we lose a lot of information. So a woman comes in and says, this doesn't feel right to me. And then they talk about, look, here we don't deal with feelings. This is the workplace.
This is hardcore black numbers. Thank you.
Exactly. So, I think what's very, very exciting to me personally now is I think we're understanding this. We understand how it happens. We understand when it happens. How do people get cut off from not knowing what, in one sense, they know within themselves?
And we know you made the exercise, extra question, you made the exercise with us it's Thursday, when you asked us to go back to the age of around 11, 9, 10, 11 years old, and we all had this beautiful experience.
So, and do you remember what changed in the room?
Yeah, that's the whole atmosphere.
The whole feeling of the room, it's like the room came alive. And we had and when I do that exercise with men, I do instead of I'm going back to find her, where's that outspoken 11-year-old in myself? I go back to 4. And
for the boys?
Yes, and you should see what happens with men when they connect.
So they disconnect earlier?
Earlier, that's it.
Than the girls.
That's right. And that's why
a really important
and that's issue, why women's voices are key.
Sure.
Because it makes a difference if it doesn't happen till 11. At 11, you're less likely to just accept it as this is how things are. Sure. You're aware, well, this is how things are said to be, but it's not how things are because you have more experience and you are older.
Yeah, sure. And it's more alive. I mean, it's not...
Closer to consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Carol, thank you very much.
Rikita, thank you. Thank you. You have to tell me now. Keep me posted.
I will keep you...
With women in Denmark.
We need it. We need your voice. We need other voices.
Yeah, well, next time I come back, I have to check with you.
You please do.
What's happened?
Yes, you have to. We'll keep in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.